The modern day reimagining of the Soundburger portable record player must have been on the market for perhaps a couple of years or so now, and it's a perfectly decent little record player. In fact, it's so nice I bought it twice. It's got Bluetooth, it's rechargeable, it sounds just fine because it's got a normal moving magnet cartridge. It's good enough for a lot of people, and it's good enough for me if I want a portable small record player just to set up somewhere. So would you be interested to know that in Japan there is another variant on this device? However, it does have a different style of case and a couple of additional features. Now, the first thing to say is that you'll see it uses the Aurex brand, and for those that don't know, Aurex was Toshiba's high-end brand. It means absolutely nothing at all now. Like a lot of brand names, just ignore that fact. It's just a name that's owned by somebody somewhere with no connection to the past history of the company. So just forget that part of it. But you'll see the device itself looks a little bit different, and if you were going to come out with a device that was to rival the Soundburger, what would you call it? Would you call yours the Soundwich Walkie? Do you get it? Soundwich, sandwich, sound, as opposed to a burger. Now the walkie bit is going back to the nostalgia tip again, along with the Aurex thing, because walkie was Toshiba's portable name brand thing. I don't think they ever had a device called the Soundwich though. I do applaud them for that pun because it's so awkward, it amuses me. Anyway, let's have a good look at it. I wouldn't recommend anyone import one of these from Japan like I've done, because it ended up costing about twice the price of the Soundburger over here. First thing though, we've got a case included with this one, which is nice. Let's get inside this, and wow, it's quite a bit wider, isn't it? Look at that. Now that means that we've got a bit more of a dust cover on here. Okay, we've got the usual Audio Technica cartridge on there, and we've got the 45 adapter at the back here. The arm rests in the middle on this one, and I presume that then pops down, yeah. So let's look at this side here, see what we've got. Okay, so we've got a line out and a volume and the USB-C. Now, the Bluetooth, where's that? Oh yeah, there's the button on the top next to the 33 and 45 and the power. Okay, all pretty normal really. You can see here perhaps covered over with a thin piece of plastic or a sticker. Those will be the two pots to adjust the speed. Just mention a couple of things on this instruction leaflet. Use only in Japan, it says up here. We've got a QR code at the bottom. If you scan that, it links to the Toshiba website, and it doesn't take you directly to this particular item, so I'll translate that into English. You can see at the bottom here we've got record player. If we click on that, that will then take us through to the page for this device. Now, it will link us to instructions on there. I'll have a look at those in a minute. It says here, released in April 2025. And that leads me to this. That one says operation guide. Perhaps that's in English. Let's have a look. Oh, cool. We've got an English language instruction guide on the Toshiba website in Japan. Okay, so the page that I've downloaded is just the quick start guide, and it's basically just the same thing as this. There's a full instruction manual in Japanese though. I've had to do a translation on that, and I wanted just to look at the battery life. It says here 10 hours. But another thing I noticed, the codecs for Bluetooth, it supports SBC, which is pretty much the standard, but LC3 as well, one that I was unfamiliar with. So I've done a bit of reading up on it, and it's a lower bandwidth, but a higher quality. Looking at the Soundburger, the codec that's used on here is just SBC. So yeah, this is a more modern device in a couple of different ways. And I've just looked as well on eBay, and you can get these from Japan for, well, $137.97 plus £10 postage, that one. You'll pay some import duties and stuff on there, but it's not as bad as I thought. So perhaps this is a better option for people who want something that's just a little bit more sophisticated. Now, the first thing that you might have noticed on the box is that it's got a record stand on here. So whilst you're playing your record, you can keep the sleeve in the back there. Okay, so if you're keeping score so far, this one is smaller, which is a positive for many people. However, this larger one enables you to have a record holder in the back and a larger cover over your record. In addition, it's got a better Bluetooth audio codec than this one, but it also shares the same SBC basic codec as this. However, this also comes with a carrying case. Not the most luxurious of carrying cases, but certainly a nice thing to have. Now, initially, I was thinking that this was just to rebadge one of these in a square case. I'm having my doubts now. Whilst it uses that same Audio-Technica AT3600L cartridge as this and many other devices, I think there are enough differences here to make me think that this might be coming from somewhere else. Let me just open the lid on this one, because that platter there, I thought it was going to be the same size as the one on here, but you can quite clearly see it's quite a bit larger, which helps with your record stability because you've got more of your record on the platter. The Soundwich platter is 11 centimeters across, whereas the Soundburger's is 9. And perhaps also worthy of a mention, although only just, is the fact that the Soundburger's lid is held in place with a catch which has to be slid before the lid can open, and the lid only opens as far as that, whereas on this one there's no catch and the lid opens all the way up. We'll just plug that in there. I'm looking for an LED. It's on the top. Right, so that's showing me it's charging. But of course we can also use it from the USB power, so let's get a record on here. So the first thing to do is lift the arm off that, put it down, and then move it into its holding position over here. Of course, we've got a stylus cover on here as well, so let's just take that off. Right, let's get a record. Now, to avoid the content matches, I'm going to be using something from Anders Enger Jensen again. This is his album In Space. Here's the next bit I wanted to show you. The next thing that makes this one perhaps a little bit better for some people than the Soundburger. And it's this, a cueing arm, something that's common on normal record players, but not present on the Soundburger, which means with that one you have to pick the arm up yourself and place it down carefully on the record. Something that some people have a little bit of difficulty with. Well, with this one, with it in this upper position, if I move this across the record, you'll see it's not scratching on it. It's only when I drop it down that it comes into contact with the record. Now, there is a bit of dampening on this. You'll notice if I move this quickly to the left, the arm follows ever so slightly afterwards. Now there is another feature I want to try out on this one that I heard it has that the Soundburger doesn't, so let's just switch it on. The light will come on permanently then, and if we move the arm in, you'll see the record starts, and we move it back to the rest position and it will come to a stop. The thing I wanted to test though is that I believe this one has auto stop at the other end, so let's just pop that in the run out groove there, drop it down, and yeah, it's come to a stop. So we lift that up and bring it back in and it starts again. Brilliant. Okay, well it all seems to be working. We just need to connect it up to a speaker now. Right, so I've got the Bluetooth connected up. Let's just have a listen. Okay, so I'm just going to pair it up with these Bluetooth headphones as well. Now, of course, whilst Bluetooth is very convenient, it's not the best quality audio that you're going to get from this. For that, you're going to have to use a wired connection. And this is another area where this device differs from the Soundburger. First off, with the Soundburger, you've got a breakout cable from the 3.5mm output to 2 RCAs. This doesn't come with a cable, but of course they're easy enough to source. The more important difference is here. You see we've got the line out socket, which is just like on the Soundburger, But this one also has a volume control for this socket, meaning you can use this as a headphone output, a wired headphone output, something which was not on the Soundburger. For that one, if you wanted to use headphones, you had to use Bluetooth ones. Now, if you were to go back and look at the YouTube comments under my review of the reimagined Soundburger, you'll see a lot of people mentioning that the lack of a wired headphone output was a deal breaker for them on that product. Now, I very much doubt any of those people are going to be rushing out to buy this either. People like to tell you why they're not buying things that they never intended to buy in the first place. But look, this one has that wide headphone output, so if that really was a deal breaker for you, this might be the product you need. Yeah, now something sounds a little bit off there. It sounds a bit flat. I'm just wondering if this thing's running at the right speed. Something doesn't sound quite right. I'll be interested to check that out later. But I think I'm getting this at slightly the wrong pitch. Yeah, now here's an oddity. DBX presents Adventures in Recorded Silence. This record has nothing recorded on it. It has the groove, but there's no audio in there. The idea with this is that you put it in your DBX disc system to demonstrate the fact that when you activate it, you cut out all the surface noise, all the crackles and pops, all the rumble, that just vanishes. But you can only demonstrate that when you don't have anything recorded on the disc, so you can hear when it's gone. So useful for me here because I've now got a silent disc I can test out, and I can just see if there is any background noise coming from this particular mechanism. So let me have a listen. Yeah, and I'm turning the volume up, and you know what? It sounds all right. There's a bit of noise there, a bit of rumble, but no more than I'd expect out of any device. Yeah, that's just fine. Okay, let's move on to some other tests then. Now, I'm the kind of person who doesn't really notice if the speed is a little bit out, but I was spotting earlier on that things sounded odd to me, and this has proved it. You see this one on the left here? We're running on a scale of 3% fast at the top, 3% slow at the bottom, and it's more than 3% slow. That is not good at all. I'm going to have to try adjusting that. Let's just move it into 45 and see what that does. So I'm dropping the stylus down into the other position and upping the speed to 45 RPM. But again, we're still way too slow. Now I need to flip this over, take that sticker off the bottom, make sure I don't damage the record as well, and somehow get to the bottom of this whilst playing it in order to adjust the speed. Just tried it with my fingernail and that didn't work, so I'm going to have to stick a knife underneath it. Of course, I don't know which one's which, but they both need adjusting anyway, so we'll find out soon enough. Right, unfortunately that wasn't working out. The problem is that these holes are very deep. If I just put my screwdriver to the bottom, it's there. Now, right down at the bottom of there is a tiny little screw head, a flat head screw, and I've got my trim adjustment tools, and the trouble with these is there's a little bit too much play on them, so you can never get it located down at the bottom. And I've gone through them all. I've been playing around for about half an hour now, so I think what we need to do instead is to take the screws out of the base of this, and then I'll get better access to that. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, unfortunately they're just marked up as variable resistor 1 and 2. And they've even took the cheek of gluing them in place as though they got the speed right. I don't know who thought they'd done that job properly, but somebody needs to get some better test tools. I'm going to turn it 45 degrees that way. Same with this one. Well, that's the end of that one. That's as far as it goes. Alright, well, let's hit the end on there. Well, yeah, that's the end on there. Right, okay. So that is maximum in that direction. Wonder what that does. Let's find out. Yeah, still quite a way to go there. We haven't improved that at all. We're still on 3% or more slow. So let's give it another go. Twist it in the opposite direction. Okay, the easiest way to go about doing this is not to play a record on here. It's to stick your stylus cover on so you don't damage that. I've got this off the Soundburger. Not everyone would have one of these, but it's just something to raise up the centre of the turntable so that I can then place my phone on it, because we're using the RPM app. So we'll just move that out into a position that starts it. We're at 33 1/3. So I've got to wait for it to get up to speed as well. That's one thing with this. It does take a few seconds for it just to get to a steady speed before you can really test it. So I'm going to pop this on here now. and as this rotates, it's calculating the speed of rotation, and it'll freeze in a second so I can show it to you. At the moment you won't be able to read that, but you can see it's green on the screen there. Yeah, we've frozen right. So we are currently at 33.32 minus 0.05, so that is a really accurate speed. I'll just show you on 45 as well. So you can see there we're at 45.02 now. I'm just going to try it with a strobe disc as well. Okay, so we're looking at the outer band here, and we want that to look like it's standing still when illuminated with an incandescent bulb, of which I don't have one, but I've got this little strobe device, so we can just have a look at that. And there you go. That's standing still. So that means we're running at the right speed now. I should perhaps have tested that before I started messing with it, just to see what it looked like. But I'll move it to 45, and we're now on the second band there. The third one, by the way, is for 78 RPM records, and you can see that one's standing still as well. Pretty much so anyway. Now, just in case you were to find yourself in this situation, which seems unlikely, I'll just lift this up and tell you which is which. So that one there on the left, that's for 33 1/3, and that's for 45. You turn it to the left to go faster and to the right to go slower. At least you do when it's this way up. If you manage to find a tool that goes through from the bottom, of course, reverse those instructions. But yeah, it's silly that that was wrong. I have no idea how they managed to get it so wrong as well. It wasn't just a little bit out, especially since they've got a thing they could adjust to get it just right. Now I'm going to put a bit of nail varnish on there to make sure mine don't move out of position now that I've got them set correctly. Okay, just a couple of things to mention before I put the lid back on. The first one is, you can see at the back here, that's the rechargeable battery. No doubt inside that plastic cover is the ubiquitous 18650, and you can see it connects up to the main circuit board with a socket there, so it's very easy to swap that out if you needed to, as is the belt for the platter. That's very easy to get to. It rides in a little ridge at the bottom of this aluminium turntable, and on the top of there, this white section, it might look like hard plastic, but it's actually a grippy mat, and very grippy it is too. I think these feet are a nice design. It's one piece of rubber with a bit of felt on the bottom, but they're hollow on the inside, so as a result you've got a bit of a spring on there, and of course that will help prevent vibrations getting through to your tone arm. It's just a neat little design. Oh, and I should mention this app also calculates wow and flutter. You can see it in the yellow section here. It's showing us 0.66%, so that's good as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the tracking force, the downward weight the stylus places on the record. Now, the scales I'm using here have been placed on a stack of stuff to bring the top of them in line with where a record would be if it was sitting on this platter. Now, this cartridge, an ATN 3600L, has a recommended tracking force of between 2.5 and 4 grams. Let's see what the results are. Okay, 3.5. Well, that's within spec and certainly not going to damage your records. And it's a very similar result to what you get with the Soundburger. Yes, I've had it plugged into the main hi-fi for a bit. I've been listening to some records on it, and it sounds just fine to me. Now that we've got it set to the right speed, I've got no issues with the sound quality whatsoever. There's no problem with the stylus skipping across the disc, or any background hum or rumble or buzz. The sound's equal stereo. It's not favouring one side or the other. You've got to bear in mind we've got that little wheel on the back to control the output volume for when it's in use as a headphone amp. But of course, for line level, you just set that to a suitable point. It doesn't matter where really, just to have it balance out with your other components. If you set it too high, it just goes louder, that's all. It doesn't distort. If you were in the market for a portable Bluetooth record player that performed its function adequately, then this is that. I mean, it sounds like I'm playing it down a bit, but the thing is, this is a relatively cheap device, and you can pay thousands upon thousands for record players. So obviously I'm not going to say it's the best record player in the world, but for most people, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It'd do the job. Okay, so let's sum up the Soundwich. Now, the major problem with this was that speed issue. The fact it was running at least 3% slow out of the box, which was unacceptable. But it reminded me that when I got the Soundburger that was also running at the wrong speed, and I had to adjust that one. And that then got me thinking, hold on a minute, I've got another Soundburger, this yellow one, which I just got out of the box and put in this protective case just to save it for the future, really. And that means I've never tested the speed on this one. So I did just that today, and that one, out of the box, is running 2% fast on 45 and 33. So all of them were wrong, which means that whichever one of these you get, you're just going to have to be very careful with it. I mean, run that RPM app on it and see what speed it's actually running at. Now, the Soundburgers are pretty easy to adjust through the bottom with the screwdriver. It turns out that this one, you're much better off going in through the top. And once you take out those 6 crosshead screws in the base, get your little flattened screwdriver, twiddle your pots, put your app on there, just keep doing that until you get it right. All in, that should only take about 10 minutes. I know that because I did it again today just to get things a bit more accurate. So I started off taking all the screws out, put the thing on, twiddle the pots, put it all back together, and the whole thing took under 10 minutes. Yeah, it's easy. You shouldn't have to do it, but it isn't a problem, and pretty much anyone should have the tools to do it, and you could just get an app to measure the speed as well. You don't need strobe discs, you don't need a special test record or any of that kind of stuff that I've got. I've got to think, though, that with them all being out of spec, that's a bit of a coincidence. Does that mean there's some terrible test equipment in China? Or does it mean that people just don't care and set those pots anywhere they want and glue them down? Which seems a bit odd, because why would you kind of glue them down if you weren't caring what position you put them in? Or do these things drift? Do they set them all up and think they've got them right, and then by the time they arrive over here, perhaps different climate, different humidity or whatever, they run at a different speed? I really don't know. Bit odd. But putting the speed issue aside, does this provide better value for money than the Soundburger? Well, in the UK, a Soundburger costs £200 direct from Audio Technica. The Aurex isn't available in the UK, but as I say, you can import them for around about 150 quid. You might end up paying duty on that. So they're going to end up roughly the same price. Perhaps the Aurex is a little bit cheaper. Now, if the Aurex was available in the UK, I don't know what brand they'd put on it then, but if it was available in the UK, I can imagine they'd probably be able to knock this one out at about £150. So, you know, it'd be a better value for money. They're going to have the same stylus on both of them. I'd imagine you get exactly the same audio performance out of them. This one is a bit of a plasticky box of a thing. I mean, it's not particularly pretty, whereas the Soundburger, much more solid. I mean, it's thicker plastic. It feels solid. You've got sort of metal screws holding the thing together. It just feels like a better quality device. And of course, they've also got the retro angle to play on this for those people that remember the Soundburger. But it turns out that when I made the video about it, very few people even knew what the Soundburger was, or at least the people who posted in the comments had never seen one before. So I don't know how much the retro angle really helps the sales on this one. But yeah, it is missing quite a few of the features that are now present on this. We've got the tone arm that we can drop down with a lever. We've got a LP holder on the back, which isn't exactly important. We've got a better Bluetooth standard on here, not that we've got any speakers that are compatible with it, or I don't anyway. We also have the wired headphone output. That's important. We've got auto stop at the end of the disc. We've got a larger platter on here. So all in, that device is probably better value for money than that. But which you buy, if any, is down to you. I'm not an influencer. I'm not here to tell people what to buy. I've got both. I've got 3 of them, in fact. So it doesn't matter to me. But if you want to search for it yourself, it's the AX-RP10. I presume that's Aurex Record Player 10. Don't know what happened to the first 9 of them. But this one, well, it's not bad. I can't imagine them using the Aurex name, though, if this came out officially in the West. I don't think it holds enough cachet, and it perhaps sounds a little bit too much like a contraceptive. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.